63rd pick, the Buffalo Bills select Deion Dawkins, tackle.
The Buffalo Bills select Tre'Davious White, LSU.
Matt Milano, linebacker.
Harrison Phillips, Stanford.
Ron Neal, safety.
Jermaine Edmonds, linebacker.
Aaron Johnson, defensive back.
Josh Allen, cornerback, Wyoming.
The Buffalo Bills select Cody Ford.
Dawson Knox.
Devin Singletary, running back. Ed Oliver, Houston.
Buffalo Bills select Zach Moss, running back. A.J. Epinesa, wideout Gabriel Davis.
Welcome into our Bills Draft Special presented by Highmark, the official health plan of the Buffalo Bills. It's the 3 days we have all been waiting for. The 2021 NFL Draft is officially here. I'm Maddy Glab, and I'm joined by Bills insider Chris Brown. And for the next 3 days, think of this as your Bills headquarters, your one-stop shop for everything you need to know surrounding the Buffalo Bills. We'll break down and help you learn about every pick the Bills draft. Chris, how you feeling about tonight?
I have been waiting for this for it seems 399 days, not 365 days, even though it's been about a year. But this is like the latest the draft has ever been in April. April 29th for night one. I mean, it's usually a few days earlier based on how the calendar falls. It feels like we've been waiting forever. But it's here.
It's finally here. We've been waiting. We've been tracking mock drafts. We've all been talking about who the Bills could select at number 30. But as of now, the Bills have 7 draft picks. They have a first, a second, a third, 2 fifths, a sixth, and a 7th. But we all know a lot can happen before the Bills are on the clock tonight at number 30. So buckle up because it's going to be a long and exciting night. For the next 30 minutes, we will prepare you for what could go down tonight, and we will be back on after we make our pick for instant analysis. So thank you all who are tuning in. Let's get into it. All right, Chris, Buffalo has the 30th overall pick in the first round for the first time ever. They've picked at 30 before, but that was in 1970 when there were only 26 picks in the first round. So picking at 30, according to Brandon Beane, it's a good thing. It's a good problem to have. But of course, once you get to 30, there's not going to be as much first-round grade talent available. But he said regardless, it's going to be a good player. And because of the free agent additions and the guys they re-signed and added, the Bills, they don't have too many holes. So you're thinking, okay, best available here is a viable option. So with no glaring holes, how does Brandon Beane approach number 30 tonight?
Yeah, and we've heard him say that, long-term instead of short-term, because you don't necessarily need to find an instant impact day one starter at the bottom of round one. And there have been some draftniks and experts out there that say there really only are about 24, 25 players with true first-round grades. Well, that would leave the Bills on the outside looking in terms of landing a player with a first-round grade. And I know that differs from team to team, but hopefully the board falls in such a way and the quarterbacks can push some of that first-round grade talent down so the Bills have a shot at one. But I think if they feel they can get a player who can play a role this year and maybe move into a larger role, potentially a starting role in year 2, they'd be pretty happy with that.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I mean, they've built this board. They've gone over so many scenarios. You have to believe with all the scouts that are in that draft room tonight. They have spent the last week going through so many different scenarios that could happen at number 30, that could happen with them trading up, trading back. I mean, you're going to trust your board at this point. And Brandon said if you don't trust your board, that's usually when things go wrong. I mean, picking at number 30 and being able to pick the best available, that is a luxury place to be in. The Bills are in a good spot right now, and good coaches, they can figure out how to integrate a player onto that roster.
Yeah, and that's why all of the pre-draft run-up, you not only spend time with your college scouting department building your board, you also spend time with your coaching staff to find out what they feel are the best fits for their scheme in terms of skill sets, measurables. I mean, we know what the Bills' DNA is in terms of character and, coming to work every day, blue-collar mentality and that kind of stuff. That's easy to quantify for the scouts. They have to go find it in the players then. That's probably the harder part. But more importantly, they need the coaching staff to tell them what kind of players fit what you guys are trying to do on offense, defense, and special teams. And that's why the coaching staff is an important and often forgotten component of the draft process.
Well, we caught up with the busiest man at One Bills Drive, One General Manager Brandon Beane, to hear what he's anticipating on night one of the 2021 NFL Draft. Here's Beane. Brandon, thanks so much for taking the time to be with us. I know this is a busy night for everyone, but when you talked to the media a couple weeks ago, you said you expect to hear from some other teams and are open to several options at number 30, whether that's trading up or trading out. Have you had any dialogue yet with any other teams? And if not, when do you expect that to start? Is that going to start right as the clock starts for that first pick? Or are you expecting 10th? I mean, where's your mind at with that if you haven't heard from any other teams yet?
Yeah, no, Maddy, we've had some calls from some teams in front of us, not way up there, but, within striking range that, hey, Brandon, we're taking some calls to go back, potentially, depending on who's there. And then we've probably had more calls from behind us of some teams that they're not committing yet. They obviously want to see how the night falls and what's there, but they probably have some players that maybe they're hearing could fall, or some guys that they're worried won't make it to their pick tomorrow, and maybe they won't be able to get up in time tomorrow, so they want to jump here at 30, 31. I'm sure they're talking to, Tampa, Kansas City, Baltimore, these other teams around us. But nonetheless, I don't think it'll really pick up till probably about 10 picks out. I think the phone will start blowing up at that point with who would be interested. And again, some of that's going to be dictated by how the draft falls.
And Brandon, when picking late, is there a little bit of a different approach where you kind of have to let the draft come to you a little bit? And, I know your last couple of years in Carolina, you're in the draft room and you experienced picking late in the round there before you came up here to Buffalo. So maybe just lay out if the approach is any different picking so late in the round.
Yeah, you have to, again, you have to be patient, which is not my greatest strength. But you have to be patient. Last year, obviously, I traded the first for Diggs, but so night one was excruciatingly painful for me, and then even night two, waiting for AJ that long was hard. And Zach, I think I told everyone I had made a few attempts to a trade up. So no, I just got to try to be patient. We want to keep our ammo, and we think there's some guys on the boards we like. So we don't anticipate anything big move up or anything like that. Not saying we wouldn't do anything, but we're going to just see how it falls. And hopefully it falls perfectly where we can sit right there and take a player that we're excited about. But if not, then maybe we move up a little bit, or we can go the other way too.
So you talk about being patient. If you have to be a little bit more patient and wait until the second round, if you decide to trade out of the first round, you said you'd be expecting to get some calls 10 picks out. So what would it take for the Buffalo Bills to decide, we're just going to wait for day two. We're good?
Yeah, I think if we feel like, listen, our round one's completely cleaned out and the top of round two is already getting thin. I mean, the top of round two, you're talking about, we're really picking almost at the top of the second round. So we could be picking there anyway. But if those guys are getting gone and we're really getting into solid round two value, that's where I would rather move back, accumulate a pick that we can either use later for that round or use as an asset in another round to maybe move back up. So that's what I'd be looking to do, Maddy. And again, it's just, we've got this board set. We've put months of work into it. You got to trust it. Where you make mistakes is where you go away from your board and you start rushing things instead of just kind of seeing how it falls. Some years it really gets cleaned out early, and you're like, man, I guess we got it right from a league standpoint, but it's frustrating. Other years, some of the guys that, especially the ones that also fill your needs. I'd love to fill every need. I doubt we will. But again, we'll see how it shakes out tonight. And then it'll be fun after tonight to look and see what's still on the board. It's always fun after round one. There's always some players to slide. We know it. We talk about it every year. It's always fun for me to sit and stare at the board and say, all right, who do we really like here, and what's going to be our plan to attack tomorrow?
And Brandon, I know you're used to a lot of people trying to decipher just what you're getting at in the pre-draft press conference every year. They try to slice your words 7 ways to Sunday. But just if you could, maybe kind of elaborate on what you meant when you said you're thinking long-term over short-term, and did it have more to do with where you're picking than anything else?
Well, long-term and short-term is what is, one of the discussions I have with Sean or the coordinators is, let's say we get this player in round 1. How are you going to use him this year? What is his play time going to be? If he's an instant starter, if it's that position, that's simple. But we don't have a lot of spots that I can say someone's clearly coming in day 1 starter. We have some areas, but there are a lot of, picks that we could have that the guy's going to compete to start or be the top backup or be they're going to play this position, but maybe they're going to be some type of a nickel, or Dayball's going to use them in these kind of packages if it's not a lineman, if it's a skill player. So just what is the play time in 2021 look like, assuming everyone's healthy? And then, but who would this guy replace in 2022? So maybe this year, Chris, he's going to play, we expect 25%, but next year he could start and play 60 to 80%.
Gotcha.
All right, Brandon, thank you so much for the time. Night 1 of the NFL draft is here. Fingers crossed that perfect prospects falls to you guys at number 30.
Good luck.
Good luck tonight.
Appreciate it. Say your prayers.
We got you. Thanks, Brandon.
You got it.
So there's going to be plenty of positions available at number 30, but which one is going to be best for Buffalo, and which position is going to be graded the highest at the time that they pick? So with that, what position is at the top of your list, and maybe a couple prospects that go along with that?
Yeah, I'm hopeful that the value is right at edge rusher, because I'm worried that cornerback run is going to happen and clean that position group out. I'm hoping that means there's a trickle-down effect, allowing some of these edge guys to show up, players like Jason Oweh and Joe Tryon. Now, is there some risk attached to a player like Jason Oweh? Yes, 1-year starter, no sacks, limited production, not a very refined player right now, but maybe he fits the long-term description that Brandon Beane just told us about, where maybe this guy is trying to get on the field in some kind of situational capacity as a rookie, and then comes along with good coaching, refines his game, and can play a bigger role in year 2. Joe Tryon is another guy, 1-year starter. Now, he had better on-the-field production than Jason Oweh did, but Tryon is also a 1-year starter, and so you say, okay, what's going on there? Measurables good for both of these players. They fit the measurable description that the Bills usually look for in defensive ends. I think Tryon's a little bit more of a versatile player, can drop into coverage in the short zones and can move around a little bit on the front. So those are probably the 2 guys that I'm hoping are there when the Bills are on the clock.
All right, I'm going to go cornerback. I know you said this run on corners could begin early, and I completely agree with that. But there are some great corners in this year's draft. Let's remember, Tre'Davious White, the All-Pro, got drafted with the 27th overall pick. We're sitting right around there at number 30. I'm thinking, maybe one of these really nice prospects falls to us, and we could have a wonderful opposite next to Tre'Davious White. But why corner? White is locked down long-term, and I think it's time to find someone who can grow into just that. Of course, you have Levi Wallace, who's won the job year after year, and then you have Dane Jackson, who's going to have a shot at that job this past year. But the NFL, it's a passing league. We know that. And if you draft a corner, you're adding more depth to that room, and it's only going to be a good thing. Look at the wide receivers the past couple of years who have come into the NFL. There are some nasty dudes in the last couple of years. Look at this class. Oh my gosh, there's some great wide receivers in this class. And if you draft a lockdown corner, it's just going to make it harder for teams to pass on Buffalo. So with that, I have 2 names who I'm thinking maybe could be there at number 30. It's Northwestern's Greg Newsome II and Florida State's Asante Samuel Jr. I'll start with Newsome. I really like him for Buffalo. He's 6 feet, 192 pounds. He's a long corner that gets his arms in a receiver's way. He's only played in 21 games, so you could look at that as a negative, but I think it's a high ceiling for him. He can run stride for stride with pretty much any receiver, and at the same time can come flying out of nowhere and jump a route. He's got tough and swift hips. He takes nice angles to the ball, and he's got sweet feet and is one competitive dude. And then there's Asante Samuel Jr. Some may say he's a little bit undersized at 5'10", 180 pounds, but hear me out. He makes up for it in his effort. Watch out, because this guy is feisty. He can truck any player regardless of size. He packs a lot of punch, packs a lot of power into his punch, and of course his dad is a 4-time Pro Bowler, 2-time Super Bowl champ, so he has that running through his blood. He's got good eyes to track the ball, has a really nice technique, has a quick twitch about him, and also can come flying in out of nowhere. So those are a couple of prospects to look at, but we caught up with the man, the executive director of the Senior Bowl. Jim Nagy joined us earlier this week to preview the draft based on what he saw at the Senior Bowl. So here's Jim and a look at some of those top prospects that maybe could be on the board at number 30.
The Senior Bowl was a chance for a lot of scouts to get their eyes in person on some of these guys other than the pro days. I mean, it was such a different off season when you're looking at how scouts evaluate these prospects ahead of the NFL draft. So with the Senior Bowl taking place and having a front stage for a lot of people, I mean, what has changed, do you think, in this season from evaluating prospects since you left the NFL and being in the scouting department with the Seahawks?
Yeah, this was definitely a unique year. We were really happy to pull off our game this year during COVID. You know, it looked very different. You know, we had to, there was tons of COVID protocols in place. All the guys from the NFL and the players had to submit a negative test within 48 hours of coming to Mobile, and then we tested those guys every day. So it was to get through the week with over 3,600 tests and only one negative. That was we feel great about that. But really, where it changed, a couple areas I would say specifically to the NFL teams. One, they weren't out on the road in the fall. You know, they weren't on college campuses. They weren't in buildings. So they were able to go to games on Saturdays, but they couldn't be on the sideline, which is where you do the bulk of your work at a live game exposure anyway. And so that was a big deal. So getting those guys down here face to face with the players was big. You know, the schools did a great job of, you know, setting up these Zoom calls with all the sources at the schools. You have assistant coaches on them and academic people and strength coach and trainer and all that. But as you can imagine, if you're on a Zoom with 80 other scouts, those people weren't going to be totally forthcoming like they would if you have a 20-year relationship with a coach on the staff and you walk down the hallway and knock on his door and, you know, sit down in front of him and ask him the real scoop on some of these players. So they're playing catch up right now. They have been really this whole process since the spring process started.
Taking that a step further, you know, Brandon talked about how the medical is as disjointed as it's ever been because there was no combine, no clearinghouse for medical exams, if you will. Now, I know a lot of guys went back and did rechecks in April in Indianapolis, like upwards of, like, I think 150 players. But there are a lot of loose ends for scouting departments to tie up here very, very late in the game. And, you know, doing those last-minute cross-checks, I mean, guys have got to be burning the midnight oil right now, knowing that you may not get every T crossed and I dotted. Are you anticipating GMs across the league to a certain degree being maybe a little bit more conservative with their early draft selections and maybe going a little more conservative than they normally might because of those blank spaces in some of these reports?
Right. Yeah, you definitely want to check all those boxes. Excuse me. During the process, and really the big thing is the missing medical information. You know, having the 150 players come to Indy and kind of give them rechecks was great, but in a typical year, that number swells to almost 400. So you've got a lot of guys with incomplete medicals. And again, I think you try to base your decisions off, you know, all the information. And that's difficult this year. I don't envy those guys trying to make that call. That's a big, heavy responsibility when you're talking about sitting across from your owner and telling him that you're investing, you know, millions and millions, tens of millions of dollars on a player, of his money on a player. You wish you had all that, and this year you just don't. And yeah, I think going the conservative route, you might see that. You might see teams trying to hit more doubles than home runs.
some of the guys who are in the Senior Bowl, when I'm talking about edge rusher and corner, who are some prospects that kind of stood out to you that might be available late in that first round?
There's a number of those guys, to get somebody opposite Tre'Davious White. I mean, I'll just bring it back locally for you guys. A player I really like is Ifeatu Melifonwu from Syracuse, the big corner. We're talking about really unique size. He's like 6'2.5", 32 plus arms, 33-inch arms, big 200+ pound guy. And he's got great movement skills, and he's got a lot of versatility. I think what Ifeatu really showed during Senior Bowl week is, they put him in man coverage on tight ends a lot down here. And because he has the size to handle those guys and the strength to handle those guys, and did a great job. And I think everyone in the league is looking for that mismatched tight end, that big bodied, guy that you can just move around in the pass game. Well, conversely, then defenses have to have a guy that can cover him. And you can't do it with smaller corners, and you can't do it with safeties. So I think Ifeatu I think that's kind of the sweet spot for him. I think that late first, early second round area is where he could go off. I think we've kind of lost the corner class beyond J.C. Horn and Patrick Surtain and Greg Newsome from Northwestern and Caleb Farley from Vatech. Those are the four guys you hear about. You don't hear about the rest of the class, and it is actually a really good class. And then, with the edge group, there's a number of players there that I think they're going to have one of these guys. I think the top three are Michigan's Kwity Paye, Georgia's Azeez Ojulari, and then Jalen Phillips from Miami. I think all three of those guys are guys that could come in and make an impact right away. I think there's really good depth in that edge class, but more in like the third and fourth rounds. I think there's a little bit of a drop off there. So, but they do come in all shapes and sizes. It's a really unique class. I mean, you got some longer guys, you've got guys that can kick inside and you can move around. So there's going to be a lot of options there as well. I think I know that staff, they're going to find the right one.
And then just quickly, Jim, before we let you go, picking at 30 is new territory for this organization. They're not used to picking down there. Just in your experience, with the draft process, what are the challenges there? Because there's a lot more unpredictability as to what's going to happen in front of you.
Yeah, I was lucky to be a part of teams that were in that spot a lot. During my run in New England and then in Seattle, I mean, we were usually picking in the mid to late 20s in that range. I think where you're sitting, where I think a great thing to do is trade back out of that spot, because you can really get the same player, at 40 or 45 that you're getting there in the late 20s or 30. The more I think about it, that 30 spot, that's going to be the trade up spot for a team looking to get a quarterback. You look at over the years with Denver trading up for Paxton Lynch. When I was in Seattle, we made that trade. Minnesota traded up for Teddy Bridgewater. Baltimore traded up for Lamar Jackson. So Buffalo might be in a really good spot there for a team that wants to get that quarterback with a fifth year option. Brandon might be sitting in a good spot there. But thanks for having me on again. I appreciate it.
Thanks,
Good
Jim.
luck in the
Thanks,
draft.
Jim.
I'm just mentally preparing myself for us to trade out so that if it does happen, I'm just ready for it, because it's going to be a long night for all of us, but it's going to be an awesome night, like I said. So it's time to talk about these mock drafts that we have been tracking since January, 150 in total. And now it's time to reveal some numbers. We're going to look at positions first. So when we're talking about positions out of those 150, actually we're going to pivot to some of the favorite names. All right, so here's what the analysts think in terms of who has been mocked to Buffalo the most. Running back Travis Etienne. He leads the way with 15
What a
times he's
surprise.
been mocked to the Bills. Najee Harris, the running back from Alabama, he's second, being mocked to Buffalo 10 times. And then there you see Asante Samuel Jr., Greg Newsome, and Jason Oweh all 9 times. Azeez Ojulari 7 and Christian Barmore 7. So when you look at those numbers, Chris, does anything stand out to you about who are the favorites according to the mock drafts?
Yeah, I mean, people are on the running back train, and even the draftniks never got off the train. I mean, from start to finish, I think you told me, because you were tracking most of these, it never stopped. Like, the names kept filling up the mock draft sheets at pick 30 for the Bills, and more often than not, it was a running back here, there, somewhere along the way. Cornerback made a nice representative appearance.
Yes.
For the most part. So did edge rusher, which are the two most popular perceived needs of the Bills. And I think the Bills, for the most part, would agree with people that they have on expiring contracts at those respective positions. The defensive tackle is a little bit of a wild card, but we should not forget that you've got basically Star Latulele, getting a little long in the tooth, age 32 season, didn't play last year. I think he has 1 year on his contract after this season. And Harrison Phillips is entering the last year of his rookie deal. And those are the two main guys that play the one technique position. Now, I don't know if Barmore is a true one technique. He might be more of a three.
Yeah.
But still in all, that might be something the Bills have to look for later in the draft that we should keep an eye on come day 3 when you and I are both pie-eyed and tired. Yeah,
it's really interesting when you think about the contracts and look into them, what depth that the Buffalo Bills could fill that would help them in the future here. In terms of positions, corner led the way, being mocked to the Bills 37 times. Edge was second. Close second, 36 times. Running back was third with 27 times. But it's time for who you got. Let's predict the pick. This is who we want the Bills to take and our best guess at who could still be on the board at number 30. So, Chris, you go first. Who would you like the Bills to select?
Yeah, I know I mentioned that guys to keep an eye on were Joe Tryon and Jason Owe. I still feel that way, but I'm wondering if the cornerback run happens. I'm hoping this guy is one of those corners that slips through the cracks, and that's Georgia's Eric Stokes. The reason why is I think it doesn't matter what scheme you want to play. If you get in a matchup with the Chiefs and you want to play press man, this is your guy. Runs a 4.29 40, has catch-up speed, plays aggressively. I know he's 6'1", 194, and he doesn't have a lot of meat on his bones, but he plays aggressively as a tackler. A good run support player on the edge, which Sean McDermott values in his defense, in his corners. And the biggest thing that I liked about his game, Maddy, is this past season, he turned plays that he was usually making pass breakups on into interceptions this season. He had 4 interceptions in 9 games. 2 of them he took back for touchdowns. I think he's everything that the Bills need at CB2, opposite Tre'Davious.
Yeah, 4 interceptions and what'd you say, 8 or 9 games? That sounds pretty good to me. I would be happy if he was on the board at number 30. I'm going to go corner 2. I talked about him already. I'm hoping the run on corners doesn't start early and one of these lovely guys just falls into our lap. So I will take cornerback Greg Newsome from Northwestern with the 30th overall pick. He's also from Chicago, so
I'm not surprised you went Northwestern.
I cannot pass on him, okay? I think he has great skills that are only going to grow. Again, only played in 21 games in 3 seasons, so I look at that as he's got a really high ceiling to grow into. He has the length at 6 feet. I really like the long, bigger corners. He's explosive and basically runs receivers' routes for them. He's great at defending the deep ball as well and really good in run support too. He covered a lot of routes that were short routes as well. So I will take him, please.
He's a complete player, so he would be a steal at 30, for sure.
Okay, what about a wild card?
Right, yeah, I know we wanted to get to like a wild card kind of pick, something a little off the wall. I'm going offensive line here, and I know people say you get your tackles early, get your interior guys later, but if you're at 30, you have a chance, I think, to get the best center in the class, and that's Creed Humphrey from Oklahoma. So if your board's cleaned out at corner, if it's cleaned out at edge rusher, sign me up for this guy. 3-year starter. The most impressive thing about this guy, core strength. I mean, he just throws people to the ground and out of the way. Even when he doesn't have proper footwork on a play, he gets caught or flat-footed or something, he still finds a way to get in the way and have a clean rep. And the thing that impressed me the most about him this year, Maddy, he was the only returning starter for Oklahoma. He had 4 new guys on either side of him, and his communication skills pulled that group together and really made them work well as a unit. So a leader, a communicator, and a tough old country strong type of center. I think he'd be a perfect fit for the Bills if they're cleaned out at those other positions.
All right, quickly, I will say mine. We're talking wild cards, so let's get a little bit wild. Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah from Notre Dame. He was my favorite prospect. He's your positionless defender. Linebacker, can rush the passer, box safety, nickel, can drop into coverage. I can go on. He's your Swiss Army knife, and I think he could really be used in this defense. So I'm just saying, speaking this into existence, if he falls to Buffalo at number 30, that is going to be your best available guy.
Be over the moon on that.
That's going to do it for us. The first round of the NFL Draft is just minutes away on NFL Network. Thank you for tuning into Bills Draft Special presented by Highmark, the official health plan of the Buffalo Bills. For Maddy Glab, for Chris Brown, I am Maddy Glab. We will see you in a few hours. We're just getting started, guys.